I've felt this shift from being focused on excellence to more being focused on faithfulness, and a shift of focusing on knowledge towards focusing on wisdom, and trying to figure out what it looks like professionally for me to do the work that I'm doing in a way that's both wise and faithful.
You're listening to the Faith and Work Podcast, where we explore ways to serve God and others in our daily work to bring life and hope to workplaces and cities. Hi, and welcome to the Faith and Work Podcast. I'm Joanna Meyer, a longtime Denver Institute staff member and executive director of our Women Work and Calling initiative. And as part of our Voices from the Workplace series, we're highlighting people who are living as faithful workers to learn from their stories and the unique perspective that their working life brings to our understanding of the Christian life. And today we're exploring work in hospitals. Did you know that almost 11% of the U.S. population works in healthcare? That is just wild to think how many of us are caring for both the physical bodies and souls of citizens and neighbors around us. Today we'll hear from a couple who works in hospital settings where faithfulness is often quiet, challenging, and deeply human. I'm so excited for you to hear from chaplain Andy Wood and his wife, OB-GYN nurse Barb. Andy and Barb Wood are longtime friends of Denver Institute. They began their careers working in campus ministry with Cru in Russia and northern Colorado. And then Andy transitioned to church ministry while Barb focused on raising their 4 young children. Both made major career shifts mid-career when they trained for their current work in healthcare. Andy's the lead chaplain at the palliative care team at CU Health Anschutz. That's the region's leading research hospital. It's also a level 1 trauma center, which affects the type of cases they see. And Barb works as a registered nurse in the obstetrics and gynecology department at St. Joseph Hospital here in Denver, Colorado. Welcome, Barb and Andy.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
I think the two of you have such a unique career path because mid-career you made a massive jump in industries. Both of you did, switching from church or parachurch ministry into healthcare roles. What led you out of this more conventional ministry work into working in hospitals?
I can
let's start with you, yeah.
Yeah. It actually began for me. I didn't know that it was beginning whenever someone gifted me a book for my 40th birthday called Falling Upward, Spirituality. I think it's called Spirituality for the Second Half of Life. It's by Richard Rohr. And he was talking about kind of distinguishing between the first half of life and the second half of life. And this is my take on his book more than his words. So if I get it wrong, blame me, not the author. He was talking about the first half of life being a time where you try on lots of different things. And you spend time discerning, getting to know who you are. You try a lot of things. You probably fail more than not. And it's a time just to kind of learn who you are. And the second half of life is kind of stepping into those things that you learn about yourself from the first half of life. Whenever I was making what I thought was a shift into a different pastoring role, I was interviewing at lots of different churches. And in my cover letter, I was being a little bit bold and saying, you know, here's who I am as a pastor, here's who you're going to get, and here's who you're not going to get. And kind of taking some of the things that I was learning about myself from thinking about some of Richard Rohr's thoughts. One of the things I said I needed in my role as a church or parish pastor was to be able to not only pastor people in the church, but I needed to pastor people outside of the church, not as an evangelistic strategy. And it was a little bit surprising for me to even say that out loud. And I think as Barb and I were discerning just different directions whenever we were talking to different churches, we were saying no more often than not to churches because we were like, it just doesn't seem like a good fit. That was a really long process for us. It was a really scary process for us to say no in the face of some job offers. And my then therapist said, have you ever considered chaplaincy? And I said, no, and I won't. And he said, "Well, will you at least meet with a friend of mine who made that transition from pastoring to chaplaincy?" And I said, "Sure." And so we sat down, and one of the first things I remember him saying to me was, "Andy, I'm able to pastor 100 times more as a chaplain than I ever did as a pastor." And that really got my attention. And that kind of began this process of being a little bit more open to that. And so I signed up for a residency, an internship and a residency at St. Anthony Hospital in Lakewood. And as soon as I started doing it, I was like, like a large exhale of, this is exactly what I've always wanted to do. I didn't really know that I wanted to. And it just brought I think, in concert with this shift of kind of walking into the second half of my life, I've felt this shift from being focused on excellence to more being focused on faithfulness,
Mm.
and a shift of focusing on knowledge towards focusing on wisdom, and trying to figure out what it looks like professionally for me to do the work that I'm doing in a way that's both wise and faithful.
Andy, what was it about chaplaincy that gave you pause? It sounds like when the opportunity was put to you, you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, what was your stereotype of chaplaincy maybe that made it less attractive initially?
Mm. I think I had in my mind a chaplain was somebody who was either a retired pastor who needed just some place to get their steps in,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of itch, or to scratch the itch of being with people, for people who couldn't hack it in a church, or just people not like me. um, and it feels a little bit embarrassing to say that out loud, because there's a lot of arrogance in some of those assumptions,
Yeah.
and I was disabused of those really, really quickly. It's an amazing collection of people.
Mm. We'll get to hear a little bit more about that in a second. Barb, how did you end up working in OB-GYN healthcare after doing campus ministry and caring for kids?
Yeah, for me, a lot of it was the practical. We had moved to Denver with four small children, and just this reality, this is an expensive place to live. And if we were going to continue to live here, that just practically speaking, I needed to help contribute to some of our family finances. So I had studied biology in college a long time previous, but hadn't used it. And so the question became like, what would I love to do? Like, if I could do something and use just the way I'm put together and the things I'm interested in, what would that look like? And so as I sat with that, and as Andy and I talked about some of those things, like I love doing pottery, and I was like, oh, I would love to do pottery. And then I realized that doesn't really make any money. So practically speaking, that's fun, but maybe not what we needed as a family. So it came down to both, like, I love the human body. I had dreamed, I think, as a kid of being an OB-GYN doc, and then had some medical issues myself and just became disillusioned with medicine in college and was like, forget it. And so I think the Lord just kind of reawakened that desire. And as I started considering, it was that or education. Like, I love teaching, and those are two things that I thought, yeah, I could do either of these things. But I also had four small children, and I thought, I don't know that I could go to work every day and care for other people's kids and then come home and care for mine. And just the human body, the intricacies of it, there's something about that that just makes me come alive. Like, anatomy and physiology was my favorite class in high school, and then I took it in college. And I mean, I would have taken it every semester if they would have let me. I just loved it. So it made a lot of sense. And so I started looking at nursing programs and figuring out how I could retake classes that I had already taken because they were too old to be able to apply to a nursing program. So it was also a relatively long path of having to take 2 or 3 years of prereqs just to apply to a nursing program. So, and I was one of the older applicants, which has its own delight. I think as I got into nursing school and did clinicals, it was really clear as soon as I did the OB rotation, I was like, this is what I want to do. I was made for this. And walking into it as somebody who was entering their 40s is a little different than entering your 20s. Some of the life skills that I had acquired, the soft skills as we would call those, enabled me to step into maybe a popular a popular area just because I was older.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think if anybody's suited to be an OB-GYN nurse, it's a mother of four who's experienced a lot of OB-GYN processes in her day. What is it about this particular type of nursing that appeals to you?
I think some of it is the amount of education that I get to do with it. Like there is something very vulnerable about having a baby and walking into something. If it's your first kid, you have no clue what you're doing. Nobody does.
Yeah.
And stepping in with people to say, hey, it's also a very emotional, hormonally emotional season. And, you know, depending on the people, sometimes this wasn't a baby that was wanted, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of complexity to this world, and I think the beauty of getting to step in and to help somebody transition into this space of parenting, I don't know. There's like I loved stepping into that, but I think stepping in with other people, there's also just this beauty to it
Mhm.
that I really enjoy, and being able to teach and educate and help them understand things. I love that piece too.
What does a typical day in the life look like for each of you? Barb, let's stick with you. Give us paint a picture of what life at St. Joseph's looks like on a 12-hour shift.
Yeah, I have lots of different roles on my floor, which is also part of what I love doing. I love some variety and mixing it up. So on any given day, like I just worked the last couple days, and one day I came in and had three different rooms with three very different types of patients, but moms and babies mostly. One woman that did not have a baby, and so a lot of my job is helping with breastfeeding, watching for signs of complications in moms, making sure that babies are thriving, that we're not having any complications there. So a lot of it's teaching and helping with breastfeeding and things of that nature. And then yesterday I was a baby nurse in deliveries. So my job is to be bedside as that baby comes out and make sure that if those lips are purple, the baby's not breathing appropriately, I'm going to resuscitate that baby. And then watching over them for the first couple hours of life, making sure everything looks just as it should, doing measurements and weights and all that kind of fun stuff too. So,
Wow. You were telling me the other day that you love those moments when you step in and resuscitate a baby. And I thought that is not how I'm wired. I do not want the life of an infant in my hands. But I mean, I think that's like such fruit of, it's seeing how God has led you there, that's something you actually enjoy and are made for those high stress moments. So it's really, really fun to see.
yeah, I don't want those moments every day.
Yeah.
Just, peppered here and there.
I'm guessing you are on your feet for an entire 12-hour shift, probably. You're not sitting down. Any guess on how many steps you might take on an average night or average shift?
Usually 10 to 12,000.
Yeah. So you're walking miles over a 12-hour
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah. And I'm tired. A 12-hour shift, by the end of it, I can feel my age.
Yeah.
I need a whole day at least. One day, sometimes two to recover. So it's intense.
Yeah. Andy, what's a day like for you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's unique to palliative chaplaincy is it's done in the context of an interdisciplinary team. We begin every day with rounds, so we talk through each of our patients. And one of the things that we do at the beginning of rounds is each of the people in the room check in. There's typically about maybe 20 people that's a part of this meeting. These are creative arts therapists, nurse practitioners, physician's assistant, social workers, physicians. There's usually 2 to 4 students from the School of Medicine who are spending time with us. I'm one of 3 chaplains on our inpatient team. It's a big group of people. We have case manager or care managers who kind of run our team, so to speak. And we all check in at the beginning of the day. We kind of say, what are we bringing in with us today? We talk about, just let each other know kind of where we're starting our day so that we can support each other well. Because while we're taking care of people who have deep dignity, we each do as well. And sometimes we need to have a heavier lift to help out with one of our colleagues, or sometimes we need somebody to kind of hold up our arms, so to speak. And so after rounds, we have a couple meetings set up for the day. These are new consults where I'm sitting down with my team. So there's typically a physician, a nurse practitioner, and sometimes a social worker in the room. And we're meeting a patient and a family for the first time. These are all people. What kind of binds the patients that we work with together is they all have serious illness, often life-limiting illness. And we spend some time getting to know them. One of the things that's really unique about our team is it's very conversational, it's very collaborative. And so that group of medical professionals that I'm sitting with, we bring in chairs and sit down with people, and the meetings last anywhere from an hour to two, sometimes 3 hours long, where the bulk of the time is spent getting to know their story, who they are, what makes them tick, the things that bring them joy, some of the harder seasons they've walked through before in life. And then we transition to the medical stuff, which is a little bit, sometimes it takes people off guard a little bit, that we're not talking about the medical stuff because that's why they're in the hospital, right? But we want to spend some time getting to know them so that whenever we're talking about what's medically possible, we can help them decide and come up with a plan that makes the most sense for who they are as a person. Try to align those things together. To cooperate is a word that I use an awful lot, to cooperate with who they are. And the aspect of what's medically possible is a pretty significant point in the middle of all that. And so having my medically trained folks in the room can really help lead that part of the discussion. So I spend probably anywhere from 2 to sometimes 4 hours sitting down in a day doing those types of things. It's usually pretty intense conversations. Usually the emotions can run high. And then afterwards we debrief, spend about 15 minutes debriefing outside of the patient's room just with the medical team. How'd that go? What are some things that we could have done differently? What are some learning points in that? And then we sit down and document. This is the most documentation I've ever done as a chaplain. I've worked as a chaplain in other hospitals. So it's something we take pretty seriously and put a decent amount of effort into. And then in between, just kind of like tucked in to different places throughout the day. Sometimes I have administrative meetings, but not a lot. A lot of the times it's just spent one-on-one with patients and families, kind of processing the conversations that we've had, processing where they're at, seeing how they're responding to what's going on, and bearing witness to whatever it is showing up in their head and heart and lives in the midst of this.
Hey, I'm Luke.
And I'm Samantha.
And we're donors to Denver Institute for Faith and Work.
As entrepreneurs, our work can often feel all-consuming. The Denver Institute for Faith and Work has helped us to think both critically and theologically about how our business is impacting our workers and the communities we are a part of.
As Denver Institute pursues its mission to prepare people to serve God and others through their daily work, we look forward to the impact it'll have. This can't happen without the support of this community. If you've been encouraged by this conversation, or if your life has been shaped by Denver Institute, we encourage you to join us in giving to this mission.
To learn more or to make a financial gift, please visit the Give page at denverinstitute.org.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that the hospital has created this interdisciplinary team that says spiritual care is to be integrated with end-of-life medical care. It's really cool to see. And it's been fun to see you treated as a peer at the table with all of these high-flying, level 1 trauma doctors. So I've really loved seeing that.
Yeah, it's been something to get used to. It was a little bit unfamiliar at first.
Yeah, I bet it was. So the two of you form an interesting contrast because you are welcoming people into the world and you are ushering them out, both in one household. It's just a fascinating mix. I can only imagine what your dinner table conversations are like as you bring that contrast together. But how does this unique, you're at the portals to life with people, how does the stage at which you catch people in their medical needs shape the way that you see the people in front of you? As a believer, how does it affect how you see your patients? Andy, let's start with you.
Yeah, one point of clarification I would add, a decent amount of the people that I work with actually are continuing to live with serious illness. They are not necessarily at the end of their lives. Some people are because it's a trauma hospital and they're there because something has changed in their body. But many people have a vision for the future that is involves kind of integrating these changes into their lives in ways, and they continue to lead very
You
meaningful
might
lives.
have chronic pain or chronic conditions that you're helping people come to
Yeah,
terms with.
absolutely. And some of those things are emotional, spiritual in nature. But I think that your point doesn't change. It's like we set at different sections of life for sure.
Mm.
A big part of the work that I do, I describe as existential hospitality, making people feel welcome
Mm.
wherever they are in their life and in their story. A lot of that is rooted in my deep belief that there is a vast range of human emotion. We see all of this human emotion show up in
I
scripture
bet.
in
Hmm.
different ways, right? As we look at the Psalms, as we look in the Old and New Testaments, we see people responding to the brokenness of the world in really distinct ways. And I don't think there is any emotion or response that's really off limits for that. And so, I mean, Joe, question for you. Like, if you're in a room of people and you find yourself the only one crying in the room, what's the first thing you say to everybody else when
You
you realize?
apologize or you
Yeah,
leave the situation, but you realize it's inappropriate, or you might perceive it's inappropriate to feel that way.
that's exactly right. And and
Hmm.
and you're not alone in that. I'm that way, and most of the people that I work with are that way. There's a little bit of shame in some of that emotion. There's like, I need to push this off. I need to put this away. And in providing this existential hospitality in that situation, in situations of anger, in situations of denial, there's so many different ways people respond to their bodies changing significantly. It's okay. I haven't found a better way to describe it, but I'm not embarrassed
Hmm.
for them, and I try to make them feel welcome and let them know that it's okay to be exactly where they're at in the midst of that. So the deep dignity of every person is really important. I think I spend a lot of time validating where people are at. You'd be surprised. People are surprised to learn that I don't talk about God an awful lot as a chaplain. People are surprised at how rarely I end up praying with people. A lot of the work that I do is just sitting and being with people and bearing witness to what they're walking through and trying to offer dignity that they would accept in the midst of that, because they have that dignity, whether they want it or not. Every human does. So those are some of the ways that my faith kind of undergirds the work that I do, provides a scaffolding for the work that I do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Barb, how about you?
Actually, really similar.
Oh, that's
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, it is interesting. Well, and sometimes our jobs do overlap in that, I work on one of the happiest floors in the hospital, and it also happens to be one of the saddest. So, when that outcome of the mom who was expecting a baby that does not come out and survive, like, we care for that that mom and the baby who we still bring into the room, and we have ways to do that. So there is a sense that it can be both. It can be either very beautiful, and it can also be very broken. And even sometimes the beautiful cases can be broken too, right? Like, I had one this last week of, an individual that was a pregnancy perhaps that wasn't wanted, that
Mm.
yet this is where they're at, right? Like, so caring for people in that situation too, you just have to realize, I think one of the biggest things is walking in and sitting and being attuned to what is happening in the room that you're in, and slowing down enough to do so that you can hear the emotions behind where people are, and you can stop rather than just getting your tasks done, but to stop and to say, wow, it sounds like you're in a really tough spot. Say more about that.
Hmm.
So to sit with women and to hear, like, I am terrified of this, or I didn't actually want to be pregnant, or I don't have any help at home, or I am so delighted. Like, we have been wanting a baby for 10 years, right? Like, there's such a range of emotion, and you can, I mean, I think it's in the same way with Andy, you can never expect what you're going to walk into because every room is different. And so I think that piece of slowing down enough to listen and to really sit and be present, to hear how you need to show up, because really you're showing up for those people and what they need, not just yeah, I'm showing up to get vital signs and to make sure that you're not bleeding too much and that your baby's feeding. I'm doing all of those medical things, but beyond that, I'm showing up hopefully to help buoy you if you need to be buoyed, or to, just be a presence. I think, like Andy said, to bear witness and to tell you it's okay to be where you are.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think about, and our listeners may do this too, like if you've been hospitalized, you may not remember the names of the people that cared for you, but chances are you remember their personality or their presence. I certainly do from the times I've been hospitalized, and that was years ago. So you leave a very distinct impression in those rare moments that you're with people. I want to ask about the more hidden nature of your work. A lot of healthcare is very hidden, it's routine, it's also emotionally demanding. You've both hit on that. But what does faithfulness look like on the days that feel very ordinary or just overwhelming in the weight of the daily tasks of what you're doing? Because I know that, like we said, Barb, you're on your feet all day during those shifts. Like, it's not a restful job.
No, it's not restful at all. I mean, I think sometimes, like in the ordinary, sometimes I think, oh, Lord, does this matter? Like, does it matter that I'm here? And being reminded, like, all work is sacred to the Lord. And so it does matter that I show up. And so what does that look like? That looks like the Portuguese speaking patient that I spend an hour and a half, 2 hours in their room on the translator to make sure they actually understand and have any concept of the things that they need to be watching for them and baby when they go home, making sure that I'm consistently in there asking the questions. They just don't get the same care when you can't speak the language, right? And we have so many second language, or who don't speak English, really. It's not a second language, they speak their first language. So ordinarily showing up in ways that I'm willing to go above and beyond. It would be easy to show up as a nurse and just to do my tasks, check them off, and chart them. And I think faithfulness as a believer, like, I think the Lord calls me to more, really to be present in a holistic way that people, I think, Joe, just like you said, that sense of, now they won't remember my name, but I hope that they remember that they were deeply cared for and they were treated with great dignity, right? Like, and I think we sometimes get patients that come in that say, I came to this hospital because I heard you guys treat people more kindly. We've heard that for sure. And I want every patient that I have to leave feeling like they were treated like a human being that was of the utmost importance, right? Like, I think in those ways, showing up, going the extra mile, and not just coming in to get the paycheck and to check off the boxes.
Yeah. And I think in OB-GYN, you are physically touching parts of people's bodies that are often private and hidden. You may be one of the few strangers that actually is invited to touch a woman's very vulnerable parts. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Andy, how about you?
Yeah, I think the thing that keeps me coming back to work is because, some days are ordinary and some days are exhausting and overwhelming. Barb can be the first person to bear witness to that. She hears all that from me. And there's two things that keep me coming back to work. One is just the work itself. It's very meaningful, and I found a lot of fulfillment in it. But a big part of it is our team. I work with an incredible, I've been doing spiritual care for, Joanna, you and I have been around each other for like the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And this has just been a phenomenal team to be a part of. We don't share faith broadly. We have people who are there's a spectrum, just like our patients, of the religious to the irreligious and everything in between, and different expressions of those. And the thing that binds our team together is the deep belief that every human has an indelible dignity. And sometimes I need reminding of that. I was struck by it just this last week whenever I was talking with one of my doctors, and she helped remind me of the importance of the work that we do, because I lose sight of it from day to day. It's a challenging thing. And so, yeah, I need reminding that, my team helps me see those things, that from an immigrant to a president and everything in between, each person has real deep dignity.
I'm wondering for both of you how we've talked about how you bring your faith to work and how it shapes how you see the patients and colleagues that you interact with. But how has your work shaped your own faith? I think work has the potential to both form our faith in positive ways. It can also deform our faith depending on the pressures and temptations that are on our jobs. So I'm wondering, let's start with Barb. How has your work shaped your faith?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting, having started work a little bit later in life. Certainly, my faith journey began a long time ago. And I think even I guess I've been nursing for almost 10 years now. One of the things that has felt like a real challenge to me is in this place where I am running around and I constantly have things going through my head of things I need to do. I mean, I always laugh and tell my patients, I'm a really good nurse, but I'm a real average waitress. So when I forget things, if you could just call me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I think that busyness, that constant go, 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 like I thrive in that. But it also has been a challenge for me to notice the Lord's presence. And so I think for the last 10 years, I've just said, like, what does it look like for me to be attentive to the Lord at work?
Yeah.
And I've tried all sorts of things, and I've tried to get up earlier. Andy will attest very quickly to the fact that I am not a morning person, and I require mass amounts of sleep every night. So I tried getting up earlier. Like I have to be at work. I usually get up at 6 and I leave at 6:30 and I have to be there by 7. So I tried getting up earlier and reading and praying and I just fall asleep. Like it was useless. So I think as I've grown, especially these last 5 years, I think recognizing that the Lord is with me in all things and the reality that oftentimes at work, it's just a matter of being attentive, that pause to say, oh, Lord Jesus, I need your help. I feel so overwhelmed. That's it. Something simple. And then on my way to work, I take my 5-minute drive to work to pray that the Lord would protect me, that he would give me eyes to see patients as he sees them, that I would be an impact for joy and delight on my floor, that I would be kept from gossip, like just that he would help me to live out faith and that I'd be aware of his presence throughout the day. And I think that for me has been huge growth. Those are little things, but it's ways that I've just noticed that in the midst of the busyness and the go, 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 that Jesus has showed up and reminded me like, hey, I'm present. And there's been, for me, it's felt like great growth because at the beginning I thought, I just have to figure out a way to do this, to be more consistent, or I'm going to do this at lunch or that. And really the reality is I just need to notice that Jesus is present, and it's been little things, but it's felt like huge growth.
Andy, how about you? How is your work shaping who you are in your faith?
Yeah, a question that our team is known to ask the people that we're working with is, what are you hoping for right now? Given what's changing in your body, what are you hoping for? We also ask the flip side question of, what are you worried about? What keeps you up at night? But the hope question really interacted a lot with that in my own head and heart. And it's changed me in some ways that I think have been really, really good and growing. I think in our broader culture, there is an assumption that to do life right, there is an upward trajectory. Whether you're in a church or you're not in a church, I think we all tend to gravitate towards that belief. It shows up professionally, it shows up in our health, it shows up in our families, it shows up in everything. This upward trajectory. And whenever it's in the church, I see us taking this Middle Eastern faith and smushing it together with some of the Western values. That
I'm laughing because it's so true.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been, the theological term for that is syncretism. It's this bringing this Middle Eastern faith and bringing in values that aren't germane, aren't a part of it.
I have one final question for both of you, and I'm wondering if you would offer a word of encouragement to our listeners. And, we have people listening from a wide variety of different types of works and backgrounds, but I'm thinking about somebody in particular who is working incredibly hard in a big institution. It could be healthcare, it could be education, it could be corporate life, where you just feel like it's just little me in this big system trying to get a heavy load of work done. What encouragement would you have for that person? Barb, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say, just from a perspective of working for a system that was acquired by another system within the last 2 years, and things have changed drastically, and it has felt like there is no agency in so many ways that is so frustrating. And we've halved our staff over the last year on my unit. So there's been lots of grief and sadness about lots of change, and then just new things coming down from above that sometimes it feels really overwhelming. Like, are we even doing anything here? Is it worth it? Like, those questions are coming up for me still frequently. And so I think one of the things I feel like the Lord has really encouraged me in is what can I do? Like, what are the things, where are the places that I have agency that I can step forward and bring positive change on my unit? I'm not even thinking about the broader. The system is so huge that I'm afraid I can't touch it. I mean, insurance runs medicine in a way that it shouldn't. And I don't even know, like, that's way outside of my realm of capacity. So what does it look like here at St. Joe's on this unit to show up in a way that I do bring hope and joy and light, that my coworkers feel like I will bend over backwards for them and support them? What does it look like to show up for those patients in the same way, like in a way that I really am bringing God's kingdom to bear here on earth in practical ways? Because that's what I can impact. I can't, I mean, maybe the Lord will give me a way forward to impact the bigger system, but right now I don't sense that that's what I'm called to. And so then on those days where I do have really hard days, which I've had a few recently that have made me just question, like, what am I doing? That I'm able to pause and to say, okay, Lord, today was really crummy and I don't really like this job today, but would you give me wisdom and hope and perspective from you, to know, like, how can I live in this? And if you were to give me a change of direction, make that super clear, right? Like, but to sit with those things and actually really offer them to the Lord, day by day, and then to have trusted advisors in your life who walk with Jesus that can say, maybe you do need to consider something more, or a spiritual director. I think also in this Western culture, we want change. We want things to be as we want them immediately. And I just think the work of faith and change is actually slow. And so if we can slow it down a little bit and just say, Lord, what are you up to? And what do you have for me in this? I just find that Jesus shows up and directs, which is really, really beautiful.
I love that.
I mentioned the phrase earlier, existential hospitality. And I think whenever we find ourselves in moments like that, providing existential hospitality to ourselves, it means validating everything that we're experiencing and giving ourselves the freedom and allowing ourselves to be there, not necessarily rushing out of it. I think that's a hugely important thing to do. I remember back to the pandemic, what a unique time for the world. And I don't know if you guys remember people putting out in their yards placards, or like the practice. I don't know if this was around the country, but in Denver there was like an hour, or there was like that everybody went out onto their porches and like hooted and hollered for medical professionals and people that were working in the pandemic. And there was like phrases thrown around like, not all heroes wear capes or heroes wear scrubs. I was really uncomfortable with that. It didn't feel sustainable, and it didn't feel someplace that, it was a hard place for me it was really hard for me to see that. It didn't feel appropriate to me. On the other end of the spectrum is like, especially in healthcare, like Barb said, healthcare is broken. There are so many things that are wrong with it. And it could be easy if for someone, who works in healthcare to say, or to hear from someone, you're part of the problem, right? You're a nurse, you're a physician, you're a social worker, you're a fill in the blank, a tech, and just to really push you down. I
Mm-hmm.
think I talk in spectrums an awful lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
think on one end of the spectrum is not all heroes wear capes. On the other end of the spectrum is you're part of the problem. I think there's a space in between there. And I think, Barb, you were just talking about it a little bit, of a place where we can be faithful
Mm-hmm.
and just faithfully do the work that we are doing. And we have influence in that spot, not in the larger spot. And it's regardless of what we're doing, if we do things faithfully, I think that there is an opportunity for us to feel the dignity of the work that we do, but also feel a sense of humility in the work that we get to do too. And those two things come together, I think, really well. And it's one of the things that my faith really helps animate in
Mm-hmm.
me, hopefully.
Thanks to both of you for sharing your example. You've encouraged me. I hope you've encouraged your listeners. And I hope someone listening today is working in a role in healthcare and is just encouraged by how you faithfully live in the in-between spaces that are the nature of your job. As we wrap up today's conversation, I'm wondering what one concept or practice resonated with you from today's episode with Barb and Andy Wood. Even if you don't work in healthcare, it was loaded with riches that can shape your own work. And I'm wondering practically, how could you encourage someone in your life who's working in healthcare? In today's show notes, we'll provide a transcript from the episode, and we'll also provide links to a couple of other Denver Institute resources that we've created over the years supporting those working in healthcare. Thanks for joining us today on the Faith and Work podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Faith and Work podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. The Faith and Work podcast is produced by Denver Institute. We believe that when Christians work faithfully, the world will taste the hope and life that Jesus provides. To learn more or to make a financial contribution, visit denverinstitute.org.